People have the wrong impression, man, and it's a shame. It really is a shame. It's not that everyone should do it. You don't have to do it, but you shouldn't be upset if someone's telling you an honest interpretation of the positive experiences they have on it. And people will go, well, you know, why do you always have to talk about it? It's fucking annoying. All you guys ever fucking talk about is weed. Because there's still people out there that are arguing against it. There's still people out there that don't get it. If everybody had access to it, especially weed, if everybody had access to weed, we would all think of it the same way that stoners think of it. Stoners pretty much universally look at pot and say, well, it's very beneficial to me, it calms me down, it gives me perspective, it makes me silly, and then there's the medical uses for it. It's like universal amongst the people that use it. Well, how come the other people don't share that opinion? Well, it's because they're not using it. It's really that simple. When you get really high, it's like you're connecting to like another frequency that it's not available to you when you're sober. And that's what people who don't smoke marijuana don't understand. There's an awareness, an opening of your mind, but the bottom line is it does something to the way you think, and it opens up new levels of awareness. There's a different level of perception that comes.
It's like you have a new sense that you usually don't have.
Right, but when you get sober, you all of a sudden start thinking it's ridiculous. When you sober up...
Because you're not feeling the same sense anymore.
Exactly. It can change your fucking life, and for the better. It can make you a warmer, more compassionate person. It makes you closer to your friends and your loved ones. It makes you appreciate your dog more. It makes food taste better. It makes sex feel better. This is ridiculous. The idea that you would just poo-poo it and say, well, if you want to go get high. It's not that, man.
Well, you see,
it's something that can enhance you. If it didn't exist, okay, and if it wasn't illegal and it didn't have all these things attached to it, you would think that shit is magic. It makes fucking way better, it makes food taste better, it makes you nicer, and it makes you way funnier, way more creative, way more honest. Like your shit resonates more when you're high. It's a positive thing, and that's what people aren't willing to accept. So many people want to think that it's a negative, it shows a negative image, or it sends a negative message that you need something to get through your life with. And that's not what anybody's saying. You don't need it. You don't need it. But it's good. It's that simple. Man, you're just on drugs, dude. I see what you're doing, man. My mind. You're just trying to fucking... There's always the cynic that steps in. Yeah, sure. That's good. This is what you got. You got chemicals interacting with your brain, and you go loopy for a few hours while your body tries to normalize the poison you've put in your system. Yeah. What you are, okay, is just another religion, man. You're just believing some more wacky shit. Yep. And all that ever tells me is that dude hasn't done DMT. That's all it tells me. Sure. You're talking shit about doing DMT, for sure you haven't done it. Because once you do it, you go, oh. A lot of people say, oh, you're always talking about pot. Why are you always talking about pot? Because it's fucking awesome, all right? And it's awesome, and it has this terrible reputation. This wrong, incorrect reputation because of fucking Nancy Reagan and Just Say No and Nixon and all the nonsense and propaganda that they force-fed you. It is a plant that is here, and it has benefits. Great benefits for your mind. To pretend that it doesn't, to me, is ridiculous. People who don't smoke pot, they don't even know what music sounds like. You don't. There's no way
you really don't. You actually don't.
You're missing like about 30% of it. You're missing some extra layers that you wouldn't even see or hear. There's a bunch of people that I know that have had DMT in their life. And once you've done it, everything else seems completely silly. Everything. The economy seems silly. Your life seems silly. Driving and traffic seems silly. Media seems silly. Everything seems silly and juvenile and temporary. There's an experience, and it only takes about 15 minutes, and you'll never be the same again. You're gonna come back, and you're gonna be burdened with all your past preconceived notions and ideas and all the things that you've learned from your life, but you're essentially gonna be a totally different person now. You're a person who can never forget the things that you saw or the way that you felt when you experienced that. You can say you know everything, I'm a fucking smart guy, I was top of my class. I get you high on DMT, I guarantee you will think about everything different for the rest of your life because you didn't know that was there. You didn't know that all you had to do was follow a few simple steps and you're in a different land where everything is complex geometric patterns made out of love and understanding that are communicating with you in some sort of a telekinesis language. I don't think that you can really appreciate life unless you know that that's there. If you don't know that that's there, it's like you've lived 3/4 of a life. It's rational thinking human beings that realize there's something wrong here. And that includes the people in the system. That includes cops, that includes judges, that includes lawyers. universe. That includes everybody along the line that is all equally eligible for a personal awakening. Every single one of them, with the proper medication in the right setting, could see some shit that would make them rethink reality, and would make them humble enough to at least understand that they don't know everything, because they never knew that that was there. What it feels like is you're going to another place, and we just assume that the only way to travel is to put one foot in front of the other, or get in a car, or get in a plane. You might be able to travel chemically between dimensions.
People talk about, like, why do you make such a big deal? They'll say to me, like, why do you make such a big deal about mushrooms? Why do you make a big deal about DMT or the psychedelic experience? Why do you make such a big deal out of it? It's so infantile. Well, I make a big deal about it because to me it is a big deal. What I've experienced, especially DMT, it's like, it's impossible. It is impossible, and it's impossibly beautiful, and it's impossibly wise. And after it's over, I feel like I'm a better person. I feel like I learned something, and I come back better and nicer and improved and more enlightened. I mean, it sounds ridiculous. I'm agreeing with you. It sounds ridiculous hearing my own voice, but goddamn, that shit is important.
You don't understand that you're missing out on a lot of great shit that plant can bring into your life.
Yeah.
And just because you run into a few people that can't handle it, well, guess what? There's probably a lot of shit those people can't handle.
That's exactly true.
A lot of shit those people can't handle, and it doesn't mean there's something wrong with weed. As a grown adult, if you haven't had a psychedelic experience, I look at you like you're some sort of an infant. I look at you like you're infantile.
Well, it's like
I look at you
like a form of illiteracy.
Yeah, it is like a form of awareness illiteracy.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, man. Awareness illiteracy. And it's sad that for some reason they're keeping so many people illiterate, but it's the practice.
Well, they are illiterate. That's why they're doing it.
There's a lot of people that aren't honest about the positive effects of it, and they treat it like it's a trivial thing. You know, one of the things that I was upset with Dr. Drew about, and I do really love Dr. Drew, but he's like, you want to go smoke your weed, you know, like he's like, look, I'm not telling you not to do it, but it's dismissive about it being a positive thing. It's always like, yeah, you want to go do whatever you want to do with your life. I'm for free will. I'm for you having a good time, and if you want to ruin your thing and go right ahead. You're not taking into account all the people that talk about these amazingly positive benefits that they have from it, and you're one of them. You're always talking about it.
Mind medicine.
People don't smoke pot, don't even know how good sex can feel. You don't know yourself until you have a psychedelic experience. You might think you know yourself, but I guarantee you're going to find out who you really fucking are when you go deep. When you go deep and you come back and you have to kind of assess everything and you look at yourself through fresh eyes, the ego, while you're sleeping, while you're working, it's gaining ground. It's like the fucking Fed. It's stealing money and it's pocketing things and taking control over certain areas. It really is like the government. And then you don't realize how fucking embedded it's become in your system until you have a blowout, until you have a psychedelic boom, blowout experience, and that ego gets just shucked aside like a fucking explosion in a comic book movie, and the ego's sitting in a tree with half its clothes off, hanging from branches because it just got blown out. You know, then you get to see yourself again. Then you get to see who you really are. But the time off of that, man, you got to be real careful, because that ego, he fucking gets out of that tree, fucking brushes himself off and clings a hold of you and starts running shit again. Listen, it'd be a lot easier if you just let me handle this. I got this. I get this. Dude, you're the shit, okay? You're gonna do this because you're the fucking man. Trust me, have a seat, I'm gonna drive. And then next thing you know, the fucking ego's in control again. Your life is fucking confusing.
Imagine if there was a book, just some book, and inside of it was amazing information that will teach you how to overcome your ego, that will connect you with your brothers and sisters around you. There's this amazing book, and it's surrounded by a fence that the government's erected, and they're like, sorry, can't read that fucking book. Can't read it. It's illegal. You read that book, you're going to the dungeon. If we catch you distributing this book, copies of this book, we put you in the dungeon. It doesn't make any sense, man. Why aren't they letting us read that fucking book?
Ignorance on the part of the people that are in position of power. It must be ignorance as to the effects of these psychedelics, because if it wasn't and they were doing them, and they knew how powerful psychedelics are for elevating your consciousness, if they knew that there's all this potential, that you could take it in a shamanic fashion if you do it intelligently, and you do it, it's like a massive vehicle for human growth. If they didn't know this, then they're acting on ignorance. Because if they were experiencing it, if they were doing this, they would change everything. They would change everything. I firmly, absolutely believe that if all the people in charge were doing weekly and monthly mushroom rituals, they would completely rethink everything.
Absolutely.
Everything.
Absolutely.
So you know they're not doing it, right?
No, they're not.
So whoever is in charge of keeping things on a Schedule 1 list, you know, whoever is the person who informs the DEA, like these are some things we want to concentrate on. This is blah, blah, blah. Chase after this, go after that.
Yeah.
Whoever's doing that clearly isn't experiencing these things.
Follow the money. That's how you find out who's doing it. The people who are doing it are the people who make money enforcing the law.
Right, but my point is we need to get those people on mushrooms. That's really what needs to happen.
Yeah, I mean,
that
that
sounds crazy, but that might be the way to fix the world. The way to fix the world might be to get all the leaders on mushrooms.
I think that I've thought about this.
Fuck yeah, for real. It sounds like a hokey 16-year-old parking lot bullshit. Yeah, man, we need to get all the fucking leaders on mushrooms, bro.
But it's not just.
But really.
Jack Herrera, the greatest hemp activist out there, started smoking weed when he was 35. He was totally anti-weed, just like me, just like Joe. Joe hated potheads. We were all just like you. All those guys that they're fucking throwing up in their mouth right now and they're sick of me and Joe talking, all those guys, we were just like you. Smart motherfuckers. You guys are smart. But that we were brainwashed by the motherfucking government. We were brainwashed. It's really simple. So you should be happy that we're trying to tell you the truth. Don't deny the truth. We're telling you the truth, man. And it's not some crazy alien conspiracy. This is some real shit.
When I first met you, you weren't a weed smoker.
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, I thought it was for losers.
What made that change?
I tried it. Eddie Bravo was the dude who turned me on to it, because Eddie and I, we met at jiu-jitsu and we were going out to lunch and we were talking about some shit, and he's a smart dude. I was like, we had really similar philosophies on a lot of different things, on politics and on the way the world works and like how strange everything is, like a very curious, very similar point of view to mine. But he would talk about getting high all the time and doing, and making his music and shit. And I was like, how the fuck is that good for you, man? I was like, pot just makes you fucking lazy. Like, that's what I thought. And he's like, no, that's all propaganda. It's all if you don't know what you're doing, if you smoke the wrong kind of weed, if you smoke too much, if you do it when you're drunk, you associate all these negative things with it. Just try it. So I said, all right, fuck it, come on, let's try it. And from that day getting high, I realized, I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. Here is this plant that gives you an altered state of consciousness that actually makes things seem you're more sensitive to things, and it makes you more aware. It feels like some weird intelligence enhancer. I mean, it makes you dopey in the fact that sometimes you get so obsessed with one idea you can't multitask at the same time. Right. So if you forget how to spell someone's name in your phone, or if you can get some weird shit, you forget what you were talking about, because there's just so much going on. It's such a flood. The key to the experience, to using it, is to learning how to relax and learning how to get rid of all the shit that makes you paranoid. Because when dudes get paranoid, when you freak out about shit, you should be freaking out about that. Whatever the fuck it is you're freaking out about when you get high, that is something that you've put in the back of your head and you're avoiding, and it's an issue that you need to resolve. And once you do resolve those issues, once you don't have anything fucking with your head, once you come to terms with who you are in this life and try to put out good energy and you feel comfortable with it, then you can ride that bitch. Then when you get high, you can fucking tune into it all. So you can get really high and not be paranoid. And instead of being paranoid, you learn how to let go and tune into some sort of a higher state of truth than what you're normally able to experience. You can see things in a perspective that doesn't seem to be available to you in the sober state. As much as you meditate, as much as you try to release, even if I'm in an isolation tank, there's a connection that plant gives you to something else. And I think we have it categorized as something that's silly. We have it categorized as something, man, we fucking smoked weed and we watched this movie, it was awesome, which is totally true too. You can do that, especially if you smoke couch weed. But you can also smoke weed and figure out the universe. Yeah. I mean, Carl Sagan used to smoke weed every day.
Yeah, I think that's why it is. I think the propaganda that went along with the people who didn't want you thinking like that, to a point, with reefer madness and all that stuff. It's like when you get high or you do shrooms and all that stuff, you start seeing things differently.
Yeah, and people will go, fucking Rogan and his bullshit pot propaganda. What are you talking about, bro? You're getting brain damaged. You're losing your mind. The people who say that, all of them don't smoke weed.
You don't know, by the way, none of you know what ice cream tastes like unless you smoke pot. You think you know what a sundae tastes like. Bitch, you're living in a dream. You're sucking a dick through a roll of toilet paper. You're not feeling it. You're not getting the full experience.
Pot is like a turbocharger for your imagination. Ideas that you have normally, they'll become much more expressive. They go down different alleys. It's an enhancer for your mind. People don't appreciate how much of an enhancer it is because it's associated with silliness. It's associated with losers who just want to sit on the couch and eat munchies, and it's associated with a bunch of dumb, lazy shit. But the reality is that the effect of marijuana is fucking magical. There's so much to it. There's so much creatively that happens to you when you're writing and you get high. These ideas just come flowing. 400% better than when you're sober. We have to look at drugs in terms of what they do to the people that take them. And the things that do positive things, you can't ignore that just because they're a drug. You're not allowed to just say, oh, because it's an illegal drug, then all the benefits that people talk about, those don't count. They're invalid. Psychedelic drugs aren't necessarily bad for you, they're just illegal. And when they're illegal, they can be bad for you, because if you get caught with them, you can get locked up. Your life can get fucked up if they find them in your piss, if you have to test for some sort of a job, and then all of a sudden you're labeled a drug addict. Yeah, in that sense, psychedelic drugs can be bad. And the other sense, it's like, look, a circular saw, like one of those are awesome if you know how to use one. You could build a house, you could fucking do some cool shit. You can cut some wood that you would never be able to cut with like a steak knife, but it doesn't mean everybody should have a fucking circular saw and just be using it all day. And that's the same thing with mushrooms. Mushrooms are just like any kind of tool. Like I say with marijuana, with a hammer, you can build a house with a hammer, or you can just hit yourself in the dick if you're fucking crazy. It doesn't mean that hammers should be illegal. Anything can be addictive. You can get addicted to cheeseburgers if you're a fucking retard. You could be one of those dudes who gets addicted to washing his hands. It's crazy that these things are illegal. Bill Hicks had a great line about that. Like, isn't there something fucked up about making nature against the law? Which is totally true. How can you tell someone that they can't have a life form that exists naturally on this planet? Whether it's cannabis or mushrooms or anything that grows naturally. You can buy, and it's only anything that affects your consciousness. You can buy stuff that's poisonous. You can legally have a bunch of different plants that can kill you. A bunch of different plants. Just having marijuana in your backyard is not proof that you're eating marijuana or using it. If you have all these poisonous plants in your backyard, nobody would even bat an eye. It's a personal use issue. It's really so weird that people allow, in this day and age, with all the information that we have, allow plants to be illegal. I mean, it's fucking pretty incredible.
Plants.
It's pretty incredible.
It is.
It's fucking really bizarre. We enforce it so strictly. It's such a strong ethic in our culture that if we catch you using certain plants that have nothing to do with me, they're not affect me at all, but if I catch you with these plants, I'm allowed by our laws to lock you in a cage. How crazy is that? It's a fucking plant. It should be legal. Everybody should be able to grow it. And if it was legal, there would be nobody making millions and millions of dollars off it. The real problem is it would fuck the economy up because pharmaceutical companies would just fucking nosedive. There'd be so many different pharmaceutical products that would be useless. Sometimes you're creating something, you're trying to do something, and you're not smoking weed, and you're like, God, it's so...
Oh, yeah, all
God,
the
not
time.
getting anywhere. And then you smoke a little weed, and then all of a sudden, BAM!
Right. Well,
Isn't that nuts?
the main thing I think it is, it just gives you a different perspective of the same idea that you're thinking almost like you're multitasking. You're thinking one way, this way, and you smoke weed, and then you can think of it a different way. And that's like one of the only ways you could ever do that.
Drugs have a vastly different effect on one person versus another, too.
Yeah, it's very important because I've talked to people about pot, even the kind of pot that I smoked, like the Figure Out the Universe, watch documentaries pot, sativas over the indicas, rather. Some people will smoke a sativa and they're describing a completely different thing and they have a completely different effect.
Does the sativa affect your mind more than your body?
Yes. Well, it affects your body too. Still, all of them make sex feel better, baths feel better, showers feel better. All of them do that. It makes you more sensitive. The rewards for massages and stuff, I never get massaged unless I get high first. Eddie Bravo, the way he put it into it was much more that pot is beneficial. Much more like pot's giving him all this positive things and all these ideas and enhancing his creativity. Like Eddie was really espousing the virtues of pot.
What I got from that has totally changed my life forever. At that point, I was able to lift from my body, lift from it, look down and realize, oh wow, this is just a vessel. It's useful, it's wonderful, it allows me to flow through this world, but it's not the be-all. There's a separation, there's a distinction between body and spirit. And from then, the fear of death evaporated for me. I certainly don't want to die, I love life, life is fucking rad, but the fear of it is gone.
The idea of keeping psychedelics from people by locking them up, it is amazing that they've been able to do that for that long, that they've been able to keep them illegal, and then if people try to use them, if you want to use it for your own edification, your own experience, it's illegal.
Yeah.
For you yourself to do something, some person will come and get you and lock you in a cage. Like, could you imagine if it was only us? Look, if it was only the three of us. We were the only people left on the earth. And we discovered while we were here that there's some shit that makes you experience like these incredible states of consciousness, and you start having this wave of creativity and these new ideas, and it feels like an incredibly intelligent alien life form is communicating with you. And then we were like, you can't do that, dude. You can't do that. If you do that, we're going to kill you or lock you in a cage. And we're going to contain you.
Yeah.
We can't have you running around down having that experience and just running around. You're not doing anything to anybody else. You're getting it, and then you're doing it, and if you do it and you test positive for it, you're against the law. I always thought the same way. I always thought that drugs are for losers.
Yeah.
You know, alcohol and drugs, and you want to smoke cigarettes, you're going to be a zero. It's going to fuck you up. And until I was like 30 that I smoked pot.
Really?
Again. Yeah. I think I maybe done it once or twice, like over the years, like drunk at a party or something like that. But it was never like, ooh, I'm gonna smoke pot and like think about shit. Never. I would never even think of that. I'd be like, you fucking loser. You need pot to think about shit, you fucking pussy. Like was my mentality. But it was the same reason. It was like I was like hyper control freak. I was trying to like be successful.
Right.
I didn't want to be a loser.
Right.
And it's healing too. It's like,
yeah,
everyone
it is.
talks about how marijuana is medicinal, and I never understood that until I ate a lot of pot and was like laying down, and I really felt as though it were like going through my psyche and doing a defrag or something. It was like cleaning up stuff
Yeah.
and like getting rid of the bullshit. For weeks after that, I felt a million times happier.
It really is like medicine for the ego.
Yeah.
It's like ego tablets. It's
Yeah.
like, your ego's been lying to you. Here, take this, and you can see what's going on. Oh, look, you got all this happening here, and oh, this is why you won't do that. And you don't clean your office because you don't want to come to the consequences of being a success. And fucking get your shit together. And
Yeah.
You let go of what your fucking parents did. They were stupid. They were young too. Okay, fuck yeah,
It's
you're right.
almost like
Carrying
a
grudge.
coach.
Yes.
It's almost like a coach standing right next to you.
I've just marveled at the fact that you make alcohol legal and weed illegal. It's like goes back to that reefer madness ignorance.
Yeah.
It's like you're out of your fucking mind.
Well, it's also an issue of it's been illegal for so long. If they come out and say there's no reason for it to have ever been illegal now, you open up a whole can of worms. A weird thing with a lot of people. They think for some reason or another you're not supposed to smoke weed. Smoking weed when you're a father like sets some sort of a weird example, or that it's a bad thing. But well, how come I can go to a restaurant and order a beer and nobody even blinks? That's fine. Nobody says a word about that. I go and get some wine, with dinner, and nobody looks at me. They ask me if I want it. If I said no, but you guys got a place where I can hit this joint, they'd be like, whoa, what the fuck? Your children are here. I think it helps my personality. It helps me enjoy life. It helps me write like crazy. It is like steroids for writing. When I get high and I write, I just strap in and ride this wave that I connect to. I get high and I go into the isolation tank and I rethink my whole life. I come up with new strategies and new ways of behaving, and I have a new appreciation for everything and a new respect and love for my friends and my family. I end up calling people that I haven't talked to in months, just getting out of the tank. And go, dude, I just want to tell you, man, we don't hang out, but I love you, man. We're friends. And I get these crazy conversations. I gotta make sure I say all these things that I need to say. It reinvigorates me. Yeah, you get into that strange place of you feel like you are now in another dimension. You've entered into an alien world. You look at the world around you, the mechanical world, like airplanes and pilots and stewardesses and cars and trolleys, and you look at all that shit, and the mechanical interfacing, it all becomes like, you become like super aware of it all, and it feels like an alien world. There's a world all around you that you've totally taken for granted that is completely bizarre. The world of you climbing into a metal box with these squishy rubber tires connected to this hard pavement that they've created and molded over the earth, and you're in this box, and while this is happening, the giant fucking nuclear explosion that lights everything up, and you're spinning around it going 1,000,000 miles an hour through the fucking universe. It's just too much, man, and you have to compartmentalize your life. And what pot does is it doesn't let you compartmentalize. You can't say, well, I gotta get the kids to school. Pot goes, yeah, you do, but look at what life really is. Look at space. It goes on forever. Inside every galaxy there's a black hole. Inside every black hole's another universe filled with hundreds of billions of galaxies, each with a black hole, each with another universe with hundreds of billions of galaxies. And all, the whole mass of it all just starts fucking overwhelming you. That's the problem with pot. People go, oh, it makes me paranoid. You know, you should be paranoid.
Yeah.
If you were really smart, you would realize this shit all ends. But I think we should appreciate the moment, but we should be aware that it's temporary. To deny it and just to put it in the back, that's not helping you. Because then when the pot comes on, when you get super paranoid about that, what you're super paranoid about is about something you haven't really addressed in your own mind. You haven't come to grips with it.
It's a real fucking thing that one day you will find out. Is there a god? Is there a devil? Is there fucking space aliens that take you away in their crafts?
Right, or is this one step in an endless cycle of things that you can't even recognize what the next one is? It's so bizarre and alien. This is alien, man. This world that we live in, if we didn't live in this world, we were some sort of an empty, rational, objective being that was like looking at human culture, we would say this way to live is the craziest thing ever. People can navigate their way through a lot of different substances in the society if you just allowed us to. As soon as you start making shit illegal and restrict the access to a bunch of different things, people can't figure out what's good and what's bad. That's why there's a lot of people that think that mushrooms will fuck your mind up. You know, that you know, smoke pot, you're becoming a lazy piece of shit. Why? Because they don't have access to it. People that are anti-pot, it's possible that you have some weird reaction to pot, in which case I would say, hey, don't do it. You know, you don't have to do it. But I guarantee you, if you're not doing it and you're describing what it is, you don't know.
Yeah, or
You're
they have
missing
like
it.
a mom or a dad or brother that was lazy as shit
Yes.
while they smoked weed. So they're like, oh no, everybody
Bingo.
is like that.
Yeah.
I've totally witnessed
Yeah.
that. And I'm like, no, it's not like that. Your brother's fucking lazy. It's
Yeah,
not
there's
weed.
they don't see enough ambitious stoners out there.
I know.
People don't understand. It will give you a different perspective. And it might not necessarily be a better perspective, but it's good to look at things a different way all the time. Every now and then, rather. If you're looking at things the exact same way, you can get locked into sort of a mental pattern where you think that things make sense. And then you need like a good, really fucking, real good bake session where you just completely float away. When you and your friends are sitting around, like, how many times have we had these conversations, like, especially like after shows, where we're just completely barbecued eating dinner and we're all just breaking down the universe or figuring out life or just having these conversations where you almost can't get there on your own. There's some conversations that you get to when you're high where you're like, man, I don't think I can take responsibility for this conversation. I don't think I ever would have got here if I wasn't high. You know?
Absolutely.
The term psychedelic to a lot of people means like seeing things that aren't there, hallucinations, dancing mice, you know, shit like that, pink elephants flying through the sky. That's not a real psychedelic state. The real psychedelic state is the dissolution of cultural conformity and your ideas of the universe, all your predetermined patterns of thinking, all your adopted behavior patterns, all that gets stripped away and you're left with the core of you and your decisions and what you can and can't change and how you led yourself into a position where you were so weak in the first place that you needed saving from. Like, why did you have no foundation? Why did you fall apart? What is it about life and about trying to get by in this world that leaves us so fucking vulnerable sometimes and so in need of other human beings to stack us up and to hold us up? When it comes to things like mushrooms, it comes to psychedelic experiences and the idea that you can make any sort of fungus that grows here naturally, it's a part of the ecosystem already. This is fucking completely ridiculous. Especially when you look at all the stuff that is legal and all the stuff that can kill you and all the stuff that you could buy at any store. It's completely silly. There's no logic behind it. It's not like this is like a rational decision. Like, you're obviously deciding what I can and can't do. You're deciding what kind of experiences I have. And there's no science behind it. This is not 1950. You can't pull some McCarthyism bullshit on me. I can get online and I can say, well, look, no one's died from psilocybin. How come psilocybin is illegal? Well, look, here I can show you 1,000 different people that'll tell you that they've got over post-traumatic stress disorder, they've gotten over addictions, they've gotten over all these things because of psychedelic experiences, and you're telling me that it's illegal. You're telling me that it's bad. Why is it bad? Here's the deal with anything. Whenever there's something that people can benefit from and people have all these stories about and there's an area to explore and someone's keeping you from doing that and trying to lock you in jail if you do that, they're the fucking criminals.
They're the monsters.
They're the monsters. They are the fucking criminals of the human race.
Yeah.
You are putting a crime on people. You are literally stopping people from evolving. People have a real wrong interpretation of weed and what its effects are, but it really helps video games. You get so focused. You get so laser beamed into what you're doing. Marijuana allows you to achieve that Zen state in almost everything better than you can on your own. Like for sex, marijuana, it turns me into literally like, I don't want to say like an animal, yeah, fuck her like an animal, but I feel like I don't have a language, an animal. I feel like I'm just primal. Like I'm way more hornier, it feels way better when I'm high. Yeah. To me, it really brings me to that Zen state of fucking. But it's all a direction that I choose to go in my mind while utilizing it.
It gives you that primal focus.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're able to focus more.
It's here for our evolution. That's what it's here for. It's here to get you better at things. It seems ridiculous. Weed is good for you. You're supposed to look at everything all the time, and a lot of us don't. We like to bury shit in the back of our head and try not to address whatever's fucking with us, and weed just turns a light on that shit. Mm-hmm. Whatever you have in your life that's fucking with you, that you're trying to put deep in your subconscious, marijuana does not allow that. It doesn't allow it. So people say, oh, it makes me paranoid. No, it's making you think about the shit you need to be thinking about. Mm-hmm. You should be fucking paranoid. You should be aware of how vulnerable you are.
The world is very fucked up. I still maintain I found my spirituality on salvia. I started with small doses, and then I've done about 6 times, and I don't want to do it again because the last time I did it was so fucking powerful and magical. But I flew out of my brain and just went kind of catatonic. I saw parallel universes, parallel dimensions spiraling out of the corner of my eye. Like I was just sort of floating in this abyss, and I saw it, it was rotating, it was making a noise, it had gravity to it, and it was almost like I could see wedges of reality. I couldn't look directly at it, it would blind me. But out of my peripheral, I could see these wedges of reality going by, and I was like, what is that? What is that? And something said, just fucking go for it. And so I remember reaching out my hand, what felt like my hand at the time, and it slowed the sphere down, and then it sucked me into one of those wedges. I felt like I was a kid running around in what felt like a Russian stadium for whatever reason, holding a flag, and there was confetti. And I was with a bunch of other kids, like it was a halftime celebration or some shit. And I was like, yay, oh, we. It felt as real as any other experience I've had in my life. And I shotgunned out of it, and then it was rotating again. I went, oh, what, can I do that again? And I reached down and slowed it down, and I went in, and then I was driving a car. It was like another reality that I could have been living, and it was just all dimensions. And you can't tell me, you can tell me it was drugs, because it totally was to some extent, but you can't tell me it wasn't as real as any other experience that I had. And when I came to on the couch, I just went, holy shit.
One of the most amazing and underappreciated aspects of any psychedelic experience is the work that you do on your own personality and your mind and uncovering all the bullshit that's fucking with you.
That's why people have, not everybody, but that's why like some of my friends have had bad trips on salvia. Like, oh, I reached a point where I felt like I was going to die, and I felt like, no, you were getting deconstructed as a human being, and you weren't ready to come to grips with the fact that there might be something bigger than you. Right. That there might be something real that you're about to experience, and you couldn't let that go.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the issue.
Well, paranoia. I mean, we had this conversation many times. The people that get paranoid are the people that aren't dealing with their life. They've got some shit that they don't like about themselves. They feel fucking creepy. And that's the reason why they freak out every time they get high. Right. It's like the marijuana does not allow you to have secrets. The marijuana turns some lights on in the corner in the attic of your house and goes, hey, what's going on? Yeah. What's all this shit over here? What are you hiding over here? If you have a natural psychedelic experience, or if you have a real psychedelic experience where you take a drug and you're planning it out, and either one is going to give you a very similar experience. And that experience is, what you're doing is totally wrong. Everybody's fucked up. You need to get your shit together. How about an analysis of yourself, an analysis of life on the planet, and let's look at this other than the way we're looking at it right now, because this obviously isn't working. That's the theme to every mushroom trip, the theme to every acid trip, the theme to every time you eat a pot brownie. You want to reconstruct the whole thing and put it back together again in a way that's rational and that makes sense. It's one of the toughest plants that's ever existed. It's the best fiber. The fiber that you make out of hemp, when you make hemp jeans or clothes, it's like so much more sturdy than cotton. And the paper, like hemp paper, is so superior to cotton. It all became illegal. Most people don't even know this. It became illegal back when they figured out a more effective way to process the hemp fiber. It was legal forever, but it became something that people stopped using because cotton became so much more easy to process. They came up with the cotton gin. And instead of just having slaves pick the cotton, which was a huge pain in the ass, then they could run it through this fucking machine, and it made it way easier. And so people were like, fuck this hemp, because hemp fibers are really tough stuff, and you got to break it down. If you ever watch like manual breaking down of hemp fiber, it's a laborious process, man, because the fucking stalk of this plant, this is like an alien plant. It's an incredible plant. The fiber's like super fucking tough and strong. You make the best rope out of it, the best cloth out of it. It's like so superior, but it takes a long time to turn that fiber into cloth or paper. It's really difficult to break down. And then in like the early 1930s, a guy came out with a machine called a decorticator. And what the decorticator did was allow them to process it just like the cotton gin processes cotton, allows it to smash it down into this pulp and make it much more usable, like almost immediately. And then that's when they said, fuck this. And that's when pot became illegal. Pot became illegal entirely because of hemp, which has nothing to do with the psychoactive properties. It became illegal because of William Randolph Hearst, who was running newspapers, and he also had paper mills, and they were going to make people start using hemp paper. That was going to be the shit, because you could take like a forest full of trees and you chop them down. Well, you're fucked because you don't have any more trees. It takes a long ass time for those trees to grow back. But hemp, you grow it every 4 months. You'd have a new fucking crop. You could use the same property over and over and over again. It's renewable, and you get much more paper. So this motherfucker was going to have to spend millions of dollars. So them and DuPont, William Randolph Hearst and DuPont, they got together and they said, here, what we'll do? We'll fucking say that pot makes blacks and Mexicans rape white chicks. And that's all they did. That's what they did. That's literally what they did. They started printing stories, William Randolph Hearst did in the paper, of this new drug called marijuana. And what marijuana was had nothing even to do with pot. The original name for marijuana was a slang for a wild Mexican tobacco. So they call it marijuana and then say blacks and Mexicans are smoking marijuana. So when Congress made marijuana illegal, they didn't even know they were making hemp illegal as well. They fucked everybody. And they did it in 19 fucking 30-something. It's amazing that that shit is still going on. It's still illegal in the age of the internet, where all the information is at your disposal. Everything. You can Google search every fucking study ever done on pot, and you can see right away that most people want it legal. Who's stopping it? Oh, people with money. Why are they stopping it? Well, because they're making money on marijuana being illegal. And they're using that money, they're bribing politicians, and that's how they keep it in place. Fuck. Really? In 2011, you can be that open. It's that open, where you can see so clearly. It's so sick, man. It's sick. It's sick that we live like this. It's sick that you can put people in jail for wanting to smoke a joint and kick back and listen to some good music and, eat some food and have some great conversation with friends and not hurt anybody. And yet cops can come and lock you up in a fucking cage for that. It's ridiculous. We know what drugs are bad, folks. We know. We have to stop letting people tell you that the drugs that are good are bad, because they're fucking wrong.
The reason this isn't changing is because we're not changing. We're moving more and more into ourselves instead of connecting with people around us. And during the 60s, psychedelics, we all know they have an effect that causes a kind of weird empathy to come into your mind. And a weird connection can happen when you're around people and you feel connected to the whole universe. You feel like I'm not just me, I'm a representative of an infinite field of energy, and people have forgotten this.
If you were a bunch of idiots that was living, 7,000 years ago or whatever the fuck they were, and, you're living with your stupid leather shoes, you got all sewn on you, and, you got some goofy-ass hemp clothing on, you're a dope. You don't know what's going on. You look at the stars every night, and you wonder when the gods are going to rain fire from the sky, and then you stumbled across some mushrooms, and you ate them, and ate way too many, and had some insane, super psychedelic wind tunnel, vortex, tornado experience, where the whole universe is like a giant ball of yarn, and each strand of the ball is like hyper segmented with billions of planets and lives and trees and water, and you can see that for 5 or 6 hours and then come back. You're not gonna want the Romans to know about that shit, man. You're gonna want to hide all that stuff. That's what the Bible really is. What the Bible is a trip report.
Yeah.
That's what the Bible is.
And that's really important, man. That's an important thing for people to know, and that's where things have gone wrong. Because one cool thing about the people who wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls, whoever the fuck they were, is that they were courageous enough to try to express that experience as though it were a reality. And now, when people take a psychedelic, they mark it off as some kind of dream or an imaginary thing that happened to them that's not real. So they pretend that this alternate dimension that seems to exist and exactly on top of ours and is filled with hyperdimensional, super intelligent beings that throughout time have been called aliens or angels or elves or dwarfs. The fact that these people tried to articulate that, they tried to bring something back from that place here, and just the effect of bringing a close linguistic description of that place onto this planet, look at the fucking change it caused. It created a religion. We date time based on that. The way we look at time is after Jesus' birth. All that stuff, it's like the power that comes from being able to swim out into the hypersonic waters of the psychedelic experience. Keep your fucking head about you. Look at what you're seeing. Try to understand it in a logical way instead of being like, I'm partying. Try to understand it. What is this? Is this a projection of what's inside of you? Or are you seeing something that's really there? And if you're seeing something that's really there, what are those symbols you're looking at? What are those? Is that Mayan? Is that Sanskrit? What is that? And the more you try to understand that and really get the message, because there is a message over there. We've all heard it. You've heard it. I've heard it. The message is the universe loves you and you're fine and everything's gonna be fine. Don't be scared. Try to spread love. Be positive. Embrace the world. Embrace your fucking neighbors and let go of the fear that's ruining your life. That's the message. That message gets interpreted in a bunch of different ways. Buddhism, Christianity, whatever. But it's not like people are supposed to stop bringing that message back. That's the thing.
Well, people don't want to accept that that's where that message comes from. There's a lot of people, when you connect something to the idea of it coming from a mushroom or any type of drug, ayahuasca, whatever, it inherently devalues the experience. Why are people so reluctant to admit the positive effects? Why is it so mainstream to dismiss it? Is that some Nancy Reagan shit that's still left over?
I think it's older than that. I mean, God, isn't it the people who came over here in the beginning were super religious and they had all these ideas about sex and intoxication that were really super strict, and we're their distant ancestors, and somehow that line of guilt still remains where if people like, I only drink after 5 p.m., I'll only smoke marijuana after 4:20? You know, they said all these things because you're not supposed to be in an intoxicated state more than a little bit. And if you are, then you've got a drug problem. I must have a drug problem. Isn't it possible that not all drugs are exactly the same? You know, isn't it possible that you don't put everything under the umbrella of drugs?
So what's holding it back? Do you think the people that are holding it back, I've always said no one needs pot more than the guy who wants pot to be illegal.
Right.
You know, no one needs acid more than the guy who wants to make acid illegal.
Sure.
No one needs mushroom, you know, down the line. It's so simple. So how is it still in a situation the way it is in today in 2011 with all the information that we have? It still never gets stopped. And there's a feeling of helplessness. For those of you that are anti-drug, and for those of you that are listening to this that are like, you know, what kind of fucking loser is talking about doing drugs, and what the fuck is this stupid shit, and this kid's listening. I think human beings owe an obligation to tell the truth about their experiences, and there is something to this that's very life-changing. It changed me, for sure. It still is changing me. It's my DMT experiences, for sure, have made me a better person, a nicer person, more sensitive, more aware of the universe. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I'm under a lot of pressure. Sometimes I snap at people. I try to keep it all together as much as humanly possible. But for sure, I'm absolutely different at my core because of having the DMT experience. All drugs aren't good for you, but some drugs are, you know, and they're not good for everybody. We should have fucking shamans. We should have places where you could go, where you could go to some professional place where this guy is sanctioned by the community. Now, this is the guy that knows how to do mushrooms. And you go to this guy's house, and he's got brilliant mushrooms, and they're all perfect, and he grows them himself, so there's nothing sketchy. And how many mushroom trips you been on? 1,000. Okay, all right, 1,000. Shit.
Yeah, you know what you're doing.
How many grams are we going to do today? Well, this is what we're going to do. You're going to be in this room, silent darkness. You're going to do 5 grams. I'm going to be outside the door. I'm going to be totally sober. I have a phone. I have a car. I can take you to the hospital if you need to. But the freak out's really only in your mind, and you're going to be fine physically. Just don't worry about it. I've been there 1,000 times. Nobody dies from this shit. And then you could go and do it. Him saying that it's physically addictive and that there's withdrawal symptoms. Look, there's withdrawal symptoms from gambling, okay? And there's withdrawal symptoms from video games. And there's withdrawal symptoms from coffee. Well, coffee's way worse.
Yeah.
That's a physical withdrawal.
Yeah, you're shaking if you don't get your coffee. If you don't get your weed, you're like, oh, bummer.
And him citing whatever fucking government organization that measures addictive drugs, guess what, man? All that stuff is nonsense. There's no real studies being done on how much marijuana withdrawal affects the average person. No, they're not putting people through marijuana and measuring them. Here's the people that have problem with pot. Ready? Losers. The people that have problem with pot, and this was in one of my jokes, one of my CDs, but it's true. If pot fucked up your life, it's just because pot got there first, okay? It could have been cheeseburgers, scratch tickets, the horse races. If a plant that makes you look at the world in a more humble way, it makes food taste better, it makes you silly, it makes you want to love your friends more, makes sex better. If that fucks up your life, you are an idiot. And it's that simple. Everybody who says that you don't learn anything, and it's just like, fuck you.
I'm so tired of that argument, man. It's online all the time. Like, you don't learn anything, you're just frying your brain. You definitely haven't done it.
Here's what I think. I don't feel that there's a connection to a higher power or anything like that, but I learned stuff about myself and what will make me happy. I see myself and my place in the world clearly.
Right.
And the more of that I can hold on to and take back with me, the better it is for me.
Well, the idea is that is the higher power. The higher power is realization. The higher power is understanding. The higher power is a stage of enlightenment that you can achieve while under the spell of the mushroom that you don't normally have.
Oh, so
that is the higher power.
It's not God. It's a higher amount of power.
You keep going deeper and deeper. It connects you more and more to the truth and more to the love, and that what you're getting out of it by getting a fresh perspective on yourself and dissolving your ego, and you feel this connection of love and everything. What it's supposed to be is you connecting to Gaia, to Mother Earth, to the true love of the universe, and then coming back to reality and have something to sort of learn from and have something to sort of look at your life. There's no logical argument against weed in 2011. It's so silly. The strongest one that anyone can come up with is the gateway one. That's just a silly thing. They're not related, I think the gateway is much more dangerous if you're not honest about pot. Because if you were honest about pot, if the government and the law enforcement and teachers and everyone was honest and said, listen, if you're going to do a drug that's not going to hurt you or kill you. There's a few that are not going to hurt you. The natural ones, marijuana, it's not going to kill you, okay? And if you want to try something, try that. But you
You have to be very careful of very addictive drugs, opiates. You got to be very careful of synthetic ones like methamphetamine. Stuff. Sure. They're very, very addictive. So
those people are scary.
Yeah, so just be honest about it, man. Be honest with kids. Stop fucking playing this game that everything is all in the same group. Because when you say that, and then kids smoke pot and have a fucking fantastic time and enjoy the shit out of some food and laugh their ass off at a movie and hug and say, man, I love you. It's so much fun hanging with you. I'll see you tomorrow at school, dude. They had the best fucking time. Why? Because they were high, okay? You know, and they're 19, 20 years old. Leave them alone. Leave them alone. It should be legal. It should be legal. You can't get some high school kid who's experienced something like that or college kid who's experienced something like that and then tell him that it's wrong. You can't tell him that it's bad because you run the risk of everything that you are saying that is valid is going to be discounted because he's going to know you're full of shit about this whole weed thing. Well, this guy's got this crazy, stupid, radical opinion about weed that's not based in facts or studies or any results that I've ever seen in my fucking life. So why should I listen to him when it comes to heroin? Why should I listen to him when it comes to meth? That's the real gateway. The gateway is not marijuana, it's bullshit. The gateway is keeping people from reality. If you just told kids what the fuck pot does to you, you know, all this nonsense about withdrawal symptoms and all this fucking silliness that you hear from people who've never smoked it a day in their life. You want to go out and utilize any lessons that you've learned from any sort of a psychedelic experience, whether it's isolation tank or drugs or whatever. You want to be able to integrate that into your life.
But it takes you someplace. It is a real trip. That's why they call it a trip. It takes you someplace. But I think not many people try actively to bring something back from that place.
Well, you have to learn something from it, and you have to be able to. Well, you don't have to. You can do whatever the fuck you want. Why am I saying have to? But I think
there's the most value, though.
I think there's the most value in learning something from it and bringing that back. Learning something about yourself, and then trying to take whatever weird exposing experience you had that really like tuned you into your own reality, and you got to take that and then be a better person with it. Take that and utilize whatever lesson you've learned from it, and then you're doing something good with psychedelics. Then psychedelics seem to make sense. Then there's no argument against it. I have friends that are atheists that will, they will give me this "there is no God" conversation. Penn Jillette is one of those dudes. He will give you "there is no God," and and I've never had a drop of alcohol in my life. He doesn't drink, he doesn't do drugs, he doesn't do anything. I'm like, the reason why he's saying that is because you've never done any drugs. Right. If you did some fucking DMT, you would have some goddamn questions. Yeah. You would come back and you would go, how is that right there?
How did that happen? Right.
How is it that I can take this stuff and I am transmitted instantly to some place that is beautiful beyond my fucking wildest imagination and filled with energy and information? Dimethyltryptamine, that in the words of the shaman, connects you to the spirit world. And the idea is that there is a world that is all around us all the time, but we just cannot tune into it. And it is a world of souls, and it is a world of the afterlife, and it is a world of non-embodied entities that are, to the experiencer, to the subjective person that's having this experience, they are as real, if not more real, than this life itself. If you could fix anything about the world, what would you do? I'd make psychedelics regularly available and legal and devote energy and money to studying them and to distributing them correctly.
Totally.
And get people who are shaman to take people on authentic trips. People who have navigated these worlds. And then when the people come back and they need help with this reprogramming, you sit down with them. You have groups of people that have also had the experience. Sit down with them, discuss what about it. Did it make you think about yourself? Was there anything that it glaringly obvious you needed to change? And then the person would say, yeah, well, there's this fucking thing that freaks me out. I'm kind of a cheap fuck, and I think we need to deal with that, right? I mean, you're kind of selfish. Yeah. I don't know what it is. I'm just like, it's a force of habit. And if you have any weird sort of a personality tick like that, and you do any psychedelic, even eat pot, just eat a cookie, man. That's the first thing that's gonna hit you. You're gonna think about being a creepy person. You're gonna think about your creepy behavior, and if there's ever a way to re-engineer society, it's to shock people out of their current pattern of behavior that they find almost unavoidable. The same patterns that cause people to overeat or chronic masturbation, we have to figure out a way to blast people out of those. Right. Shock you out of the pattern, show you yourself from an angle or perspective that's not available without the psychedelic, then bring you back and give you something to think about. It's like these little trips, these little blasts, they're just little bursts of massive evolution. It's society. You see yourself. You see how you can fit. You see nice. You see positive. Good. I'll see you in a couple months. And just keep doing that. And every couple months, people go in, get blasted, talk to people. People talk them through situations and tell them about ego, and then it's all a trick, and it's just temporary anyway, man. The best feeling you'll ever get is to be really cool to as many people as you can. The best feeling you'll ever get is just to be nice to as many people as you can. Be friendly to them, shake their hand, hug them if you can, and just be someone that other people enjoy to be around. When you do that, you create positive energy, you create love. This burst comes from you, and you attract it, and you bring it into your world.
Marijuana has a built-in self-promotion mechanism. There is not a drug in the world that when you do it, people talk about more.
There's not a drug in the world that's more beneficial on a daily basis.
Exactly.
A lot of people
point.
love Tylenol, and they talk about Tylenol.
It's like a mild psychedelic. It's like a psychedelic that you can use all the time. You can't do mushrooms every day. I mean, you can, but you're going to fucking lose your connection to humanity. You can smoke pot every day, and it just makes you more empathetic. It makes you more real. Makes you connect to your real emotions better, the way you interact with people. What you learn from a bad trip is that you've got some issues, man. You got some shit that's bugging you. You got some imbalances in your mind, and you're not focusing on them. That's usually what it is. I mean, it comes up in nightmarish clarity. That's what psychedelic experiences really do. When you have something that's really fucking with you, that it's such a primary focus inside your mind that when you open up these doors to psychedelic dimensions, your mind is going to grab that shit and shove it in your face and go, what the fuck is this? Why are you hiding this from me? Why don't you get this shit out of the way? You have a strong mushroom trip, man. It strips you down. You see what they describe as the wiring under the board. You know, you see things in a different perspective. It's an impossible perspective. It shouldn't be, first of all, it shouldn't exist, and second of all, it shouldn't be so easy to get to. All you have to do is eat this stuff. You eat this stuff and wait an hour and 20 minutes, and all of a sudden you're literally in an impossible to describe different world that shouldn't exist. It can't be real because it violates everything you know about life. When you're closing your eyes, everywhere you look is something more and more impossible. And there's information coming at you, all the answers to all the world's problems, but it's like slippery fish, and you're standing in a river and you can't fucking hold on to many of it. There's just too many fucking fish coming your way, man, and there's the water and the information is hitting you.
One of the values of psychedelics is they kind of decondition you from your present state of consciousness and your kind of social ideology and belief system. You know, there's a kind of peeling away. And I remember the first time I took mushrooms, one of the first experiences I had was going to a deli and buying something with money and just finding it totally ludicrous that our culture invested so much belief in these wrinkly, brown, ugly pieces of paper, you know, and that everybody was kind of so disconnected from their present experience and focused on the sports or the stock ticker or all this crap, from my opinion. You know, so I think that peeling away back to a kind of phenomenological, as they say, level of just presence of being, that's a very powerful thing. And we tend, you know, as humans, it's very easy for us to get lost in abstractions and concepts. But then we believe in our concepts. We think that they're real. So the psychedelics can break that investment we've made and all these things that we think are real that are just abstractions.
That reset really, I think, strips away the superficial layers of manufactured need and so forth, and allows you to look at problems that are easy to overcomplicate when you intellectualize things or rationalize. So you accept whether it is a bad relationship or whatever it might be. And the afterglow effect that I've felt after each of these resets, each one has been transformative in solving one or two major problems in my life, is there's this afterglow effect of supreme clarity in terms of your priorities and values for a few months for me. It really lasts a long time.
People will get into this ridiculous, just obey the law. Why is it such a hard time? What are you, a druggie? You need drugs to get through this life. And I always say, this is such an illogical argument, because imagine if we were on an island, we were the only people on the planet, and there was only 4 of us. There was only 4 of us, and one of us wanted to smoke pot. And we said, no, we gotta lock this guy and put in a fucking cage. He's crazy. And
it's
we
nice
decided,
to reduce it to that, to 4, then you really see the dynamic.
You see how silly it is. Like, what, you would just lock this guy up in a cage. You can't smoke pot. We made a law against it.
Yeah.
Like, what? And that 4 is just as ridiculous as 4 million or 400 million or what. It's just as ridiculous.
It's an extraordinary thing, and you have to consider what it's led to in our society in all kinds of ways. It's led to the creation of huge armed bureaucracies who have the right to break into our homes, smash down our doors, humiliate us in every possible way, ruin our lives with criminal records. And all because what? We're smoking some natural herb which affects our own consciousness in some way. So again, I say, if we get into the faces of others, the state may have a role to play. And it does. And it already has elaborate rules for dealing with that. But for the state to have transgressed the consciousness of free sovereign adults is a grotesque abuse of human rights.
People ask me why I'm so vocal about it, and the reason I'm vocal about it is because I can get thrown in jail for it. So I'm going to be vocal about it until there's absolutely no possibility that I can get thrown in jail. And this is for the kids too. I'm fucking making a stand here. You're making a stand here. In the future, by the time the kids are 18, 19, 20, hopefully it'll be legal. So we're doing this for the kids. But I'm a big fan of Coca-Cola. I love Coke, but I never talk about it. But if it was illegal to drink soda and you can get thrown in jail for it, I'd be talking about it every goddamn day. I'm like, I'm drinking this fucking soda. I'll be videotaping me drinking soda. It's okay. Why are we being thrown in jail? Look, I'm a productive guy drinking Coke, but you know what? It's legal. I'm not talking about it. It's so safe. Weed is so safe.
Weed is the safest of all of them, and it's the most introspective of all of them. You know, alcohol doesn't make you introspective, it makes you an asshole. But weed makes you, like, sensitive about the things that you're saying. It makes you more aware of when you're being socially awkward. You know, you feel the sting of, you know, weird shit coming out of your mouth. Whereas when you're drunk, you don't give a fuck. It just comes back. It just pours out. You know, it's an amazing thing that so many people believe different. Don't let government get too big. Well, this is exactly what this is. This is only something that's being pushed into illegality by gigantic corporations. This is the only way in this day and age that it would still be illegal. There's resistance because people are making money with it being illegal. It's that simple.
And when you look at the movie Reefer Madness, it was made back in the 30s. It was produced by the government. And if you look at that and you see where it all came from, that was the beginning.
It was actually made by alcohol companies.
Yeah, in the beginning, they tried to scare everybody by saying that weed made you kill, it made you crazy, you'll jump out of windows, you'll kill people. They made lots of movies. They made a whole bunch of them in the 30s. That was the Reefer Madness propaganda. It worked. Any negative thought you have about weed, it stems from that propaganda from the 30s. It's not a conspiracy theory. There's many movies out there that you could watch. You could watch them on YouTube. That's where it started. The reason why they don't say that, you go crazy and you jump out of windows and you kill people and all that shit anymore is because people got hip to it. They believed it in the 30s and the 40s, but then, people were smoking weed in the 50s and 60s. They were like, it's not making me crazy. This is actually pretty cool. So they had to change their stance. Slowly, it evolved from weed kills you to weed makes you worthless. They have a lot of examples because there are a lot of potheads who are worthless, but they're just worthless people. So they just focus on that. Any negative thought you have for weed and marijuana, it's because we've all been brainwashed. I used to be the biggest weed hater ever until I was 28. My whole life, I couldn't stand potheads. They made me sick. I was just like all those guys on the underground who were writing all that shit. I would have been doing that. I would have been doing the same fucking thing. I was annoyed. Every band I was in had one or two potheads. They fuck up on stage or they fuck up rehearsing. I would blame the weed. I go, dude, are you fucking high? You fucking smoking weed? You can't play bass and smoke weed. I was so clueless. I didn't have any idea because every now and then I'd get talked into smoking weed. There was a high school moment. There was a moment when I was 23, 24 where I freaked the fuck out. I got all paranoid and I freaked out and I hated it. And weed, what happens when you're high is it's like a roaring river of information that just flooded into your brain. Some people don't want to ride those wild rapids. They're like, fuck that, I'll stay in the tent. Some people are like, yeah, let's ride that wild rapid and just absorb that energy and use it to benefit yourself. Some people, when you get paranoid, I still get paranoid every now and then. Every now and then, that fucking roaring river, I don't want to do that. I'm not into it. So, the paranoia and feeling irie, two opposite ends of the spectrum, it's all up to you with the weed. It's all up to you smoke weed. If you can get paranoid, if you can't handle all that information, you want to suppress a lot of that shit, don't get high. If you got a lot of crazy, stressful things on your mind, things that are making you nervous, you got to talk to some people, but you don't know how to say, you might get fired from your job, or your wife's, might be cheating on you or whatever. You're thinking about all that shit. If you smoke weed, you're going to focus on that.
When doctors will tell you, look, if you want to have your pot, if that's your thing, go ahead. It's no big deal. You want to get silly, but I would recommend you not.
Right.
When they have like this flippant attitude towards it, like
today's actual medical doctors, the ones that give physicals, exams and stuff that don't have anything to do with this culture, they don't know enough about it and they don't care to. And the doctors that do know are considered quacks. They put these fucking labels on them so that it makes their opinions invalid. But people are smarter these days. There's more information out there than there was 20 years ago, where you had to go buy books to find out whatever information in regards to the politics of it or growing it or just the history of it, where now that shit is all over online and people have educated themselves and they kind of know exactly what's going on. So when they're fed this bullshit, people get frustrated because you're thinking that people are buying the same old bullshit that they used to. And we all know that besides smoking it the way we do, there's so many uses for it. And there's so many reasons that it should be legal.
The real issue is that it's a commodity.
Yeah.
And you make that commodity legal, you're going to open it up to farmers.
Yeah.
And you're going to allow people to have control over a pretty powerful resource. The product hemp is illegal in this country. You can't grow hemp in this country because it's too close to marijuana. Even though it's not even psychoactive, it's too close to marijuana, so you can't grow it. Well, that's ridiculous because the plant itself has so many fucking uses, like an incredible amount of uses for nutrition and for protein and for making paper and cloth. Like, it's so ridiculous. It's one of those things where you hear the actual facts and it almost seems like a joke because it's like there's no way there could be something that's this good at so many different things and is illegal. What it is it's so self-examinatory. Like, your life is gone over in such massive detail. It's like your frequency has been altered. It's like you can see, you're much more perceptive about your environment.
It's like having to fucking fine comb through all your shit yourself.
Yeah.
And just the things you got going on.
And then the universe itself and just the idea of biological life.
It's almost like a lighter form of what mushrooms do to you.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's similar, but not as intense.
Not as intense, but at high doses, I think it could be just as intense.
Yeah.
The thing about marijuana is it's so euphoric and it's so mind expanding, and it's what it does when you have the feeling. And this is, by the way, is not for everybody. Obviously, everybody's brain works in different ways, but with my personal experience, I get this wave of understanding when I get high, and that prepares me for things, man. That's one of the reasons why I like to get high before I do big giant shows.
Yeah, it slows everything down for me. I play poker tournaments high.
Yeah, pool is fantastic high. I play a ball better when I'm high.
Really?
Yeah.
That's another thing you'll say at a tournament. You'll see all the poker pros, running to their cars at breaks.
Yeah,
and running back
marijuana is an enhancer. It is an enhancer. It just is.
The impulse for many people who are taking psychedelics is not to try to wipe out the universe, but it's to try to go deeper into the universe. And so that means that a lot of people in the jails right now and a lot of people in the dungeons, they had the same instincts as like a lot of the great philosophers. They just wanted to expand their mind and understand a little bit about the universe, and they're in prison now. They're imprisoned. And so from the prohibition, you're not just getting an inability to go enjoy a great fucking night at some underground party or the inability to like have a great camping trip with your pals. It's literally, I think, stifling evolution, because God knows what amazing thoughts people could be coming up with if there was regulated psychedelics and we got to explore them to understand how to really use them and how to really harness them to make us smarter. This is something that's the birthright of humanity. All indigenous tribes have some form of psychedelic that they take. This is like the ancient people of the earth knew about this, peyote, ayahuasca, yet somehow in the modern age they're keeping us from this experience that maybe is the thing that connected the Native Americans to the earth that you were talking about in the beginning. Maybe it is the thing that made people not so fucking fixated on material possessions. But it's why we have a prohibition happening now. It's the Dark Ages. We have access to certain mind states where you can bring back authentic information that can help your life and the life of the people around you. And there's a possibility that if enough people were having these mind states, there might be an acceleration in technology, an acceleration in science, an acceleration in philosophy. But because we can't get these mind states, things are slow and weird and dumb right now. And the reason we can't get it is so that people can make more money.
results, and they're all scattered and all over the board, and they're mixed in with psychosis and bad trips and a lot of fucking freaky things that have happened to people, and they've taken the wrong shit, and they got a hold of a fake computer. And that is because there's a lack of regulation, because there's a lack of understanding, because there's a lack of appreciation for the true effects. As human beings, it is absolutely preposterous that so many people will tell you folks can benefit from it for it to stay illegal. The people that are stopping it, they don't make any more sense than us. It's not like they're the really wise and cautious and noble and loving overlords that want to protect you from your own folly. That is not what's going on, because they're talking in ignorant statements. Medically, it's ignorance. There's no evidence to back up what they're saying. There's no reason that it makes sense. And then when you start throwing numbers at their face, like the amount of nonviolent drug offenders that are in jail, and how preposterous it is that our society exists where a bunch of people are doing what they want to do that doesn't hurt anybody else, and someone decides to lock them in a cage for it. Who's doing more harm? The guy who's smoking pot, or the person who locks them in the fucking cage and destroys their life? And does it because it's written on paper somewhere that that's okay. Well, that guy is the destructive force. The law becomes the destructive force in society, not the drug. When you say drugs kill people and drugs are responsible for 1 million people in jail right now, that's why don't do drugs, you won't get locked up. No. Don't put people in cages because they don't agree with you, because they like something. They like it so much they're willing to risk freedom because they found themselves in some sort of a situation when they're in an environment that they have no control over whatsoever. They were born into this, they didn't ask to be, dropped into this preposterous, illogical, nonsensical, ridiculously lopsided and corrupt society. And you just expect them to comply with these stupid fucking things that are written down on paper that everybody knows makes no sense. That's the problem. The laws are the problem. The laws are destructive. The laws are anti-evolutionary. The laws are anti-enlightenment. That's the problem. It's not the drug. It's not pot. It's not mushrooms. It's the laws against pot and mushrooms. Those are a devastating aspect of our society. Those are. Not the fucking drugs, you dummies. Missed it. You missed the whole thing. You're not protecting anybody, you fucks. And anybody that hasn't done drugs, if you haven't done mushrooms, fucking for sure you shouldn't be a cop. No way, man. You're gonna be in position of power with a gun and making decisions, and you've never done any mushrooms at all? You've never had any look at yourself through the eyes of alien intelligence? You've never had some objective outside the body experience analyzing all the shitty aspects of your own life? How the fuck are you growing? How are you developing? Are you crawling along and one little stumble after another, and one little apology after another, and one little breakup and makeup cycle after another, where you scream insults at each other and then say, I'm sorry, baby, it'll never happen again, I've learned my lesson? Is that what you're learning about yourself from your shitty lonely nights eating TV dinners, hoping that your chick's gonna return your text message? That's what I'm saying, getting someone to respond to you, because you realize that being a cunt makes people not like you anymore. So that's how you're growing. Instead of seeing it in one big burst. All leaders, all cops, all teachers, all of them should have a psychedelic experience, or they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. There's a goddamn mountain of information now, and the information can tell you that it's relatively harmless. And then you compare it to all the things that are legal. No one should ever get hassled for it. No one should ever get pulled over for it. No one should ever get arrested for it. No one should ever get fined for it. It is relatively innocuous to our society.
It's 2013, and what you mean to tell me is that somebody would get arrested for smoking pot in this country.
They still can.
And people are still getting arrested. How sad is that?
It's
With
pathetic.
all the problems that we really have in this country. You're gonna come and fucking handcuff me for fucking having a quarter ounce.
I think the very real possibility that our number one problem is that we're separated from this idea of how connected we are to each other because psychedelics are illegal. That's why this world and this country that we live in, this government that we're run under, is so fucked up and corrupt, because they don't deserve to be in the position they're at. They've never had a life-changing experience to the point where they have experienced that other side of possible reality that comes from the psychedelic experience. You can't get past that. It's unbelievably humbling, and you should be looking for that in a leader. You shouldn't want a leader that hasn't had psychedelic experiences, because that's a person who hasn't really faced whatever the fuck that is. When you strip away culture, when you strip away language, and you just see truth and love in this humbling, bare form that just rips you to your core and makes you sort of rebuild and restructure who you are as a human being. A lot of those motherfuckers have never had that, man. There's a lot of people that are out there running around flapping their gums that have never really been humbled by life. They've never really been humbled by a psychedelic experience, which is a part of life. It's not just a choice. I think it's a part of life. It's certainly is a choice. I mean, don't get me wrong. Don't do it if you don't do drugs and you can't handle even a drink. You know, you don't do anything you're not comfortable with. But it's a part of life, man. That's why it's here. That's why it works on you. The reason why it works, because it's here to work for you. It's a part of you. You're a part of a giant system. If I was a doctor for the world and I looked at this problem and I was like, well, I see what you got. This is a bunch of cunts that haven't done mushrooms and they're running things. That's what it is. You have a bunch of old, greedy fuckheads that are just unpsychedelically inclined. They've never had consciousness expanding experiences. They don't know the beauty and the love that you get from a psychedelic experience with friends where you realize how much of the way you behave and live and interact with people is just an insecurity. It's just stupidity. It's just a humble little thing that wants you to come along and eat it. And when you eat it, you're granted spectacular visions. Spectacular visions and feelings of love and God and unity and the thoughts of the universe being entirely connected in one big mathematical equation, computations and cells and organisms and fucking all the way down to atoms and subatomic particles and then branching out again. Our concept of life and our concept of intelligence is very narrow, and we egocentrically have assumed that all intelligence must be contained inside a brain. Right. Some sort of an intelligent, upright body that we can respect, that's going to come here from another planet and show us how to use a laser gun. But in fact, intelligence can exist in plant form. Intelligence and spectacular visions and knowledge all comes out of a dimension that you cannot access without these molecules that exist in these plants. And it opens literally chemical doorways in the mind. I smoked pot only a handful of times in my life, maybe half a dozen, until I was 30. And then when I was 30, a friend of mine got me high, and I had a completely bad perception of the effects of marijuana. I thought it made you lazy. I thought it was just something that sedated you. I thought it's something that made you slow and stupid. And I wasn't interested in that. And even though I had one experience to the contrary, when I was living with my friend Jimmy DiTilio, and he had a friend that was a big pothead, and we all decided to smoke some pot together. I could never smoke pot, neither did Jimmy. So we got high, and then I'm like, Jesus Christ, man, I gotta drive to a gig. It was like 2 hours later, still baked out of my fucking head. And I had never gotten high before. Like maybe
and you had to do the gig.
Yeah, maybe 2 or 3 other times in my whole life before then, right? And only usually when I had a couple of drinks in me. So I have to drive and do this gig, and I am shitting my pants. I'm like, I can't do my comedy high. First of all, the audience is gonna know I'm high. I was only 21 or 22, and I had the best set I've ever had up to that point. I was like, this is crazy. Like I've never been so smooth. I've never
relaxed.
Yeah, relaxed, focused on what I'm actually saying.
Totally in the moment. Totally in the moment.
And I was like, that's incredible. And I was like, that can't be because of weed. I was so scared to try it again. I never tried it again, but I remember thinking that, like, wow, was it the... It certainly has felt like when I've had DMT experiences that I wasn't in the same places I am now. I felt like I was in a new world. And I definitely also was kind of tweaked by the fact that I was myself. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't stoned. Right. I wasn't myself tripping balls. I was myself seeing something that was impossible. When you have the DMT experience, one of the things that it does is it strips away the physical presence of things. And it's almost like the world of here's the ground and here's the air and here's a tree and here's a building. That world is replaced by a world where nothing has any matter. Nothing has any physical matter, but everything is everywhere. Everything is everywhere, and you're in the middle of it, and there's no ends, and there's no beginning, there's no roof, there's no floor. It's just one thing. It's all a part of one thing. And you're in there scrambling, trying to make sense of it, and these things come out of nowhere that are essentially constantly changing as you're watching them, so you're not even sure what the fuck it actually is. And you know, it might be your own mind. It might be your own mind trying to make sense of the whole thing, and they're trying to give you information. One of the things they try to tell you is don't freak out and try to suck it all in. Try to take in as much as you can, because you know this is crazy, and they tell you they love you too.
For your intelligence, for your spiritual growth, you need to take into your fucking being certain things. Great scriptures, incredible writing, and on occasion, a nice fucking mushroom trip.
I think if we had a world filled with people who've all had breakthrough psychedelic experiences and they were running this country, it would be a lot easier. If we're going to be an honest society about substances and their effect on people, we've got to be honest about the positive stuff too. You've got to be honest not just in people jumping out a window, which is possible, but you got to also be honest about people who go on mushroom trips and become much better people. And that's like a real legitimate phenomenon that's been documented in the John Hopkins study, that people have changed their personality for the better because of one intense mushroom trip that they had, where they experienced profound love and connectivity and all things that people like me and my friends that have had psychedelic experiences have all relayed. Everybody relays the same thing. It changes who you are. It changes the fundamental direction in which your life is going. And if we as a culture don't recognize that that is a potential tool to help all of us, including the people that are in extreme positions of power, they would have a better life if they embrace this shit as well. The really promising feeling that you get from psychedelic drugs is that what you experience is so stupendously alien to what you experience on an everyday, day-to-day basis that it gives you hope for some really complex structure to the universe that's unavailable to you when you're in a straight and normal form and state of consciousness. There might be chemical doorways to different dimensions and chemical doorways to different experiences, and that's essentially what your whole neurochemistry and your whole life is based on. You're a series of chemicals. Adrenaline when shit goes wrong and you need to fight or flight. Serotonin when you have babies, and dopamine when you see people that you love and you go outside and it's sunny. And I mean, there's all sorts of chemical releases that are constantly going on that bring you to altered states of consciousness. And we know that the brain produces some very extreme psychedelic chemicals. So it just stands to reason to me that this idea that the only thing that's real is some shit that you can touch with your hands, and that this dimension and this experience is the only thing that's real because it's what we're conscious of and what we're involved in right now, I say no fucking way. I say it's much more likely that this thing is way more complicated than we can even imagine. There's times when I'm high where I completely disagree that it's not an impaired state. It's an enhanced state. It's very difficult to manage enhanced state, and there's a lot going on. But it's not impaired.
It's modified.
It's modified.
It's modified.
It makes reality a little slippery. You can get socially awkward. You can get paranoid. There's a lot of things that can happen that what it is you have a massive amount of extra sensitivity. And it's almost the exact opposite of being drunk. And what people don't understand is like, oh, he's impaired. He's on the pot. When I'm on the pot, I play pool twice as good, maybe 3 times as good. I can play like professional level for long stretches of time when I'm high as fuck. I write better comedy. Like, there's a lot going on that you can't say. There's no downside of that. It's not a detrimental situation. And Carl Sagan has said something that it's my quote on my message board. And when he said it, I was like, thank you. It says, I am convinced there are genuine and valid levels of perception available with cannabis and probably with other drugs, which are, through the defects of our society and our educational system, unavailable to us without such drugs. And there's real clarity in some of these experiences. It's just so much recreational use and so much fucking around with all of us that it's been, especially with people who don't do any of these things, they don't smoke pot, they've never done mushrooms, it seems like a recreational, silly type activity. It doesn't seem like there's any validity. Dr. Drew on fucking CNN tried to say that there was massive withdrawal effects coincide with quitting marijuana, which is complete physiological nonsense. It's just not true. It's not like heroin. It's not like you can die. You know what has the worst withdrawal? Alcohol. People die because they don't drink. You get so addicted to alcohol that if you go cold turkey, your body can go into shock and you can die. It's not marijuana, stupid. And he's on CNN talking about that, talking about marijuana being something dangerous. Only to pussies. If marijuana fucks up your life, I've always said this, it's just because marijuana got there first. It could have been cheeseburgers, scratch tickets, it could have been anything. You're an idiot. You let something that makes people happy and makes people more sensitive, makes food taste better, you've made that ruin your life. You could ruin your life with anything if you so choose. People get addicted to washing their hands, people get addicted to sitting in front of shows and not leaving when the commercial's on. People are nuts. You can't say because a certain amount of people can't handle marijuana. Marijuana would do a lot of people that are in control of this world some good. Just to be paranoid, just think about the repercussions and think about the actions that they've done and what that's caused to the people that they have control over. Psychedelics give me hope. For real.
Yeah.
Not joking. It sounds ridiculous because people associate psychedelics with non-realistic things, with hallucinations. They don't look at it the way I look at it. I think that there are certain plants here that have aided in the evolution of human consciousness. They have changed the way people look. They've changed the way I look at people. They've changed my relationship with human beings. The way I look at human beings has fundamentally changed by having psychedelic experiences, and changed for the better. Made me a healthier, nicer person, made me more loving, made me more aware of the consequences of my own personal actions, and I think that's one of the reasons why they're illegal. And I think it's a shame that they've been derided to the point where it's a laughable topic. If you say, yeah, Rogan also thinks that mushrooms can cure mankind. Well, guess what? They could. If we all had really intense mushroom trips, first of all, people would come out of that with a complete reset. Come out with that, you would be healthy, but you would have a complete reset of the way you view eternity, the way you view this situation that we're in. We're so caught up in our own little culture and our own little situation that we have constructed and that we're fighting against and trying to control all these various aspects that we don't even think, we don't take the time to think about the incredible majesty of just life itself and how amazing it is and how incredible it is that you have friends and loved ones and how incredible it is that you can have sex and that you could drink wine and you could eat steak and you could go to a movie and you can drive a car. We live in a fucking fantasy world. And I think that if people had some newfound appreciation, whether it's from near-death experiences, whether it's from psychedelics, whether it's from meditation, whatever it is, I think people operate their lives primarily on momentum. They get up the same way they've always gotten up. They move in the same way they've moved to get there every day to work, and they go through the same job every day. And that momentum is very, very difficult to break. And even if it's not a healthy momentum, whether it's beating off till your dick bleeds or gambling all your money away, we still get stuck in that momentum. I need a drink. You don't even know why you need a drink. You're stuck in some wacky momentum. You could call it being addicted to porn. You could call it being addicted to the internet, but we're stuck in a wacky momentum. And the only thing in my experience that changes that is a complete reconstruction of how you view the world. And the only way to do that is to step away. You have to have some sort of a disconnect, some sort of an experience where you get an objective look at things for the first time. You look at things as if you were someone completely unattached to every single aspect of your life and the lives of all the people around with you, but you get to see it like mapped out in front of you clearly and cleanly with no ego, with no financial repercussions. Just you get to really see what it is. And that's not fucking possible for most people without some form of psychedelic experience. Psychedelic experiences are part of life experiences. They're unbelievably introspective. They force you to examine your life in a really almost an alien way. And again, not for everybody. Different people go into them with different baggage. Some people try to fight the experience and go crazy. There's certain aspects to a psychedelic experience where you cannot control it. You don't have any control over it. But what it does do for sure is humbles people. And what it does do for sure is it squashes your ego. Right away, I recognize that this is like some crazy truth serum. It's another thing. It's not as simple as it seems. You look at marijuana, oh, these guys are getting high and you're just escaping reality. It's actually doing the exact opposite of escaping reality.
Seeing reality,
Yeah.
you're seeing it for what it is.
Diving into it
Yeah.
with the lights on as bright as possible. There's nothing escape about getting high. This is what people don't understand. They say, well, look, hey, I'm all for it. You want to smoke your pot? Go ahead and smoke your pot. If that's what you want to do. Some people like to drink. Some people like to smoke pot. And the problem with that is that they are talking from a non-experienced point of view. They're not a person who's had any psychedelic experiences, and they're not a person who has had any cannabis experiences that were enlightening. And you and I both have had some crazy experiences, eating it, smoking it, whatever, where we broke down some certain aspect of our life and changed things and looked at things in a different way and created things. And music has come from it, and ideas have come from it, and an understanding of yourself comes from it. And to discount that is ignorance, especially if you haven't experienced it. It's pretty life-changing shit, man.
Yeah.
Just to know that it's possible. Just knowing that it's possible, it sort of like really puts first of all, your understanding of the universe into perspective.
Yeah.
Because you go through your life, and as you're experiencing life and doing things and traveling and meeting people and going places, you're formulating a database of possibilities. Like, these are all the possible people that I can meet. These are the possible scenarios. Oh my God, I'm in front of 14,000 people. This is a possible event. Who would have thought? And you you accumulate all these different experiences and you put them into your view of the world. Then you do something like DMT. And DMT is so strange and so gigantic and so impactful and odd and impossible to describe. And using any words to try to piece together the experience of a full-blown DMT trip is ridiculous. It's a waste of time. It's inadequate. Words exist to describe experiences that everybody has in common, whether it's large groups of people, whether it's life or death or violence. Those words to describe DMT do not exist, and you have no frame of reference for them. You have no point of reference if you haven't experienced it. And that's weird, to know that there's something that's so different from regular life that if you take it once, you never look at regular life the same way again, because the possibilities have now changed, because you know that a DMT trip is possible. Before I did DMT, I would have never imagined that that was available, and that if it was available, it wasn't something that was being discussed on the front page of the New York Times every fucking day, where scientists weren't getting together with world leaders and trying to figure out what it means, what it's doing, what it does to you, why it changes your life, how much would it benefit people to have this experience, should it be regulated, should it be understood, should it be encouraged, like what should we do with this stuff? Instead, it was like a secret. And then instead, the trippiest thing about it was what I would talk about it, and I would do like videos about it, and then people would go, what the fuck are you talking? I never even heard about this. I'm like, how is it possible that you're learning about one of the craziest things that any human being has ever experienced ever, and you're learning about it from me? Like, how is it possible that no one's talking about this? It didn't make any sense. I didn't understand it. And then you find out that your own brain makes it, and then you find out that it's also in a million different kind of plants, and then you find out that it's super illegal. And it's like, what is going on with our laws? Right. What is going on with our system of government, where one of the most life-changing experiences you could ever possibly have, and it's illegal. Like, you can go to jail for it. Like, it's absolutely massively beneficial to thousands and thousands, if not millions of people, and it's illegal. We're being run by madness. Yeah. That's what DMT lets me know. DMT lets me know that our system of government, the system that we're born into, is just fucking madness. The system of trying to stop people from doing shit that you don't understand and you've never experienced, that's madness. Just that alone opened me up to that. Forget about what I've learned or what I felt when I was having the DMT trip. Just the fact that someone who has never experienced it tries to keep it from you. Someone who doesn't understand it and has never actually had it is trying to tell you what it is and trying to regulate it, trying to keep other people from doing it. That just shows you how crazy we are. If marijuana is a gateway drug, I'm really, unfortunately, a good example. I think we have to get over that idea, and I think a big part of the struggle that we have in this country is a lot of conservative people misunderstand the position of people that support marijuana or cannabis. And it doesn't mean that they're mutually exclusive, and it doesn't mean that they have to be in combat with each other. It just means that, for whatever reason, as a society, we have associated cannabis smokers and users with lazy bitches, and that's stupid. And I think that if I have benefited as an unnecessarily aggro child of the 80s, then I bet you can too. It just needs to be used properly, and it's going to make you examine yourself in a way that may be uncomfortable, but is most likely necessary. And the ideas that we have connected to any sort of psychedelic experience, marijuana, peyote, you name it, mushrooms, automatically people of a conservative nature will assume that the people involved in doing this thing are being lazy. They're being frivolous because they've decided to seek escape through chemicals rather than deal with reality. But if they really knew, they would know that that's not the case. If they really had experience, they would know that no, it's the exact opposite. If psychedelics were not illegal and incredibly difficult to come by, we would not live in the same world. Yeah. We would be connected.
What we need is a nurturing society which makes it possible for people to have these experiences in the safest, most loving environment. Love is key. If you're feeling threatened in your head at a particular time, if you're in a space that is uncomfortable or difficult for you, the chances are the psychedelic experience will also be uncomfortable and difficult. The more that you can control the space, the more that you can be surrounded by others who love you, and have your best interests at heart, the more likely you are to have a very beneficial experience from that. Those beneficial experiences can and frequently do include painful moments when you come to realization of actually who you are and what you are.
It's a core factor of
I would say it's a
psychedelics.
core factor of all psychedelics.
And I always felt like it's really ironic that law enforcement works against psychedelics, because nothing would benefit law enforcement more than psychedelics.
Absolutely.
If psychedelics were legal, there'd be so many less crimes. First of all, the drug crimes be out the door, and then it would be a matter of how many people are on mushrooms are going to rob your house. How about zero?
Exactly.
You know, I mean, they would ask you for food if they were that starving. I just think that we have this incredible ally that our culture, our society, we have this amazing plant that we've discovered in several different forms. And we've made all of them outside of our reach. We put all of them outside legal reach, which is insane. It's insane.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what's going on. Why is society on this self-destructive trip right now?
They're ignorant. Psychedelics are here for human beings to take to move to the next level of consciousness, and they can elevate us away from our warlike ways. Here's an important point about psychedelics. It's not necessarily real. Like, what you're seeing when you're having a psychedelic experience, it doesn't mean you went to another dimension, even though it feels like another dimension. It doesn't mean you're talking to intelligent entities that give you the secret of life and the secret of happiness. It doesn't mean that. But whether or not you really are or are not traveling to other dimensions when you're on psychedelics, the experience is exactly the same. So it really is as if you are traveling to another dimension and interacting with intelligent beings. And intelligent beings that give you truth and honesty and see through all your bullshit and see through your behavior and can explain how to live this life in a happy way to you. And if you listen to them, it actually works. Doesn't mean it's not a figment of your imagination. It might be. But the point is that even if it really is just your imagination, there's no difference in the actual experience itself than if it was really happening. The path of trying to figure out, like, what's the best way in life is obscured by law. Isn't that amazing? There's laws that they've created that make the best tools to find out who you really are illegal. There's not a therapy in the fucking world that will get a crazy, sociopathic, egomaniacal person to really look at themselves like a bag of mushrooms will. People that you know that are untrustworthy, that you can't trust their stories, those are the people that we all agree could have the best experience on psychedelics because they'll give them like the best view of themselves. We want to think of our moments as being moments individual unto themselves, but they're not. They're a chain of unique moments throughout your entire life, your interpretations of those unique moments, and then all of your associations with life itself that are connected to your interpretations of these moments, and then boom, here you are today. And you want to think that this is life, but it's only life because of all these pathways that you've carved in the way you view the world.
Cool. I discovered weed and I was just like, man, movies are great. Who knew?
Ice cream is delicious.
Who knew that movies were amazing?
Yeah, everything is better.
Yeah.
Everything. And those are the things that people don't like about people that smoke weed when they talk about it. Like, yeah, oh my God, this movie's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, look at the sunset. Shut up.
But it is.
It is, yeah.
The sunset's incredible.
That's a weird thing with the people that don't like the effects of pot, because the effects of pot is just like you become calmer and like super appreciative of everything. Like they'll call it stoner talk. What it really is like recognizing the wonder in things that you ordinarily take for granted. I completely forgot what we were talking about. What were we talking about?
I like weed because it turns my life into a movie.
I don't even remember what I was talking about. That's how high we are, ladies and gentlemen. Barbecued.